And a good evening to you all, Timmy Talkers. As promised, this is the first set of creepy tales for the 10 days countdown to Halloween. I'm going to pick a different one every day. They're a little bit longer than perhaps my normal Timmy Talks would be, so bear with us. But if you like a ghost story, and they're true, please do stand by. As you can see, I've got my reading attire on, so that should make it all, give it all the more gravitas, shouldn't it? I'm off to work, so that's why it's daylight, but later in the week I'll do some candlelit readings in the dark. Today's is The Ghost of Bluebell Hill. It is said that the figure which appears with startling suddenness in front of drivers is the ghost of a young woman killed in a road accident in November 1965. 4 girlfriends had spent the afternoon trying on dresses for a forthcoming wedding. In the evening, they went out to a pub to meet the bride's fiancé. They had been on their way for only a very short time when a Ford Cortina skidded on a treacherous bend near the pedestrian bridge over the Old Chatham Road on the A229 north of Maidstone, and they collided with another car, and 3 of the girls were tragically killed. Since this appalling accident, there have been many sightings of a girl on the road. Worse still, there have been several phantom accidents. One night in 1974, a highly agitated Maurice Goodenough of Rochester reported to his local police station that he had just run down a young girl on Bluebell Hill. He said that only yards away from where the 4 young women had been in their terrible accident 9 years earlier, he had driven into a child with sickening force. She was no more than 10 years old, he thought. She was wearing a white blouse, skirt and white ankle socks. He'd been unable to get help from passing motorists who ignored his desperate attempts to flag them down, and afraid to move her but reassured that her injuries were less serious than he had feared. Goodenough had bundled up the girl in a tartan rug and left her at the roadside while he drove to the police to seek help. The girl had jumped out so suddenly, he told the police, he had no chance to stop in time. Yet when the police accompanied Goodenough to the scene, there was nothing there but a blanket at the side of the road. She could not have walked away, the driver insisted. She would have gone into her with some force, and it was inconceivable that she should simply get up and walk away. And anyway, walk off to where? She must have been in need of hospital attention, for her forehead and knees were bleeding, and the child was obviously shaken. Had someone picked her up? But why was Maurice Goodenough's car undamaged? Was he mistaken? And who was she? She was too young to be the ghost of one of the young women killed on that stretch of road in 1965. And he had carried her to the roadside, actually lifted her from the ground. But if it had been a real accident, why was there no subsequent report from a hospital or from the girl's parents? Among the more recent phantom accidents is the experience of Ian Sharp. On the 10th of November 1992, late at night, he was driving near the Alresford turnoff on the Maidstone-bound carriageway of Bluebell Hill. Without warning, he saw a young girl appear in the road in front of him as she ran towards him. There was nothing he could do, it was all so sudden. Just before she disappeared under the bonnet of the car, she seemed to stare directly right at him, straight into the eye. After skidding to a halt, Sharp looked under the car for what must surely there be a sign of somebody. But there was no sign of anyone. Frantically he searched the bushes at the side of the road again, but there was no evidence of any injured person. Desperate, just as Maurice Goodenough had been all those years earlier, he attempted to flag down cars, but none would stop. Ian Sharp, understandably worried and shaken, reported the matter to police. Together they went back to the place where Sharp told him he'd had the accident. They made a good search of the area, but found no sign of any injured girl, nor were there any marks on the car. The police, curiously, were not too surprised at what had occurred, and they explained that such incidents were not unknown on this stretch of road. But Sharp said she was not like a ghost. She looked like a solid human. One thing was certain, he said. It was the most scary experience of my entire life. Only 2 weeks later, the same year, on the 24th of November at 11 o'clock at night, 19-year-old Chris Dawkins had a similar experience. He had driven through Bluebell Hill village on his way to Maidstone and was passing the Robin Hood Lane junction when a woman wearing a red scarf ran into his path. She vanished in front of his car, seemingly to fall underneath it. After the collision, he stopped near the Lower Bell pub and went back to look for the accident victim. Finding no sign of any accident, he telephoned his father and the police, and there was a thorough search of the area, but still no dead or injured pedestrian could be found. Chris Dawkins was as convinced as the other motorists he'd been that he'd run someone over. She ran in front of my car, he said. She stopped, looked directly at me. There was no expression on her face, and I hit her. And it was as if the ground moved apart when she went under the car. I thought I'd killed her, because it wasn't as if she was see-through. She was solid. She was as real as you are. And quite the same thing happened to Paula Cooper, who was motoring up the hill early one Sunday morning in June of the following year. A figure ran out in front of her, and she too thought she'd hit somebody. Again, a search of the area by the police produced nothing, and as ever, the car had not been damaged. How similar this is to the other reports. Over the last 30 years, many incidents on Bluebell Hill have been reported, and the police now accept, and their reports conclude that motorists have encountered a ghost. In fact, there are more than one ghost has been met in the area of Bluebell Hill. In 1969, David Smith of Rochester told the Evening Post of how he had, on 3 or 4 occasions when driving up Bluebell Hill, had seen 2 pedestrians walking. And although looked solid enough, they had simply vanished when he was within 4 or 5 yards of them. Once I saw them walking down the hill on the side opposite the pavement. I was driving straight down the hill at the time and suddenly saw them walk straight across the road in front of an oncoming vehicle. The car drove straight through them, and there was no trace of them was left. Now, I've heard stories of Bluebell Hill from me dad for donkey's years, and even now, I must say, it's a bit creepy when you do drive down it. So, have a wander up there. When it's foggy, I don't know if it's because these are already in your mind, but it's a creepy hill. Anyway, you can easily research the Ghost of Bluebell Hill, the Hitchhiker, and so on and so forth. There are various variations of the theme, but it's a creepy road nonetheless. Take care, everybody. Today's song will be Thriller by Michael Jackson, because it's Halloween, isn't it? Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow for a second instalment. Good night out there, whatever you are.